Hello viewers, thank you for joining me. Heavenly Delusion won this month's poll, and let me tell you, some shows are harder to write intros for than others, and I've really been struggling with this one. I've got a few ideas as to why that is, but they're all conclusion-type thoughts, so let's just jump right into this one. There are two halves to this series, and we jump back and forth between stories throughout. On one side of the coin are a bunch of children being raised in an isolated facility. The children are all a little strange, and at first you could probably chalk it up to the isolation. They've never known a world outside this one. Rumors of a world outside these walls are treated like urban legends. But the longer you spend with these kids, the more examples you see that they're just built different. Their bodies can withstand things they shouldn't be able to, and nearly all of them exhibit some form of never quite explained psychic ability at one point or another. Nearly the second I saw this facility, it really gave off the vibe of a place that was probably experimenting on these kids. But aside from one who dies of a mysterious illness he should be immune to, and some sketchy details on how they came into this world in the first place, there really doesn't seem to be much, if any, of that. But the director and their teachers clearly can't be trusted. The methods used to raise the kids seem pretty above board, so it becomes more a question of what they're raising the kids for. The other side of this story is two teenagers traveling around the outside, which is revealed to be a post-apocalyptic world. Heavenly Delusion is an interesting take on that sort of setting, because we're not given much information on what the apocalypse actually was. The Great Disaster only happened 15 years ago, so there are plenty of people around who can remember life before. But the end of that life is treated like something that kind of caught them off guard, when it's talked about at all. There were major earthquakes and other natural disasters that killed off a lot of the population, and now the world's overrun by monsters known as man-eaters. These two are kind of shrouded in mystery, despite how many our heroes fight over the course of the series. They can take many different forms and have a wide range of special powers. Some believe they're aliens who invaded Earth, others think they're a side effect of a nuclear war, one of the theories behind the world's collapse. Our two protagonists are just barely older than the apocalypse themselves, so while it definitely would have been nice to get some real answers, I do also think it makes sense that these wouldn't really be pressing questions for them. Like the kids in the facility, they've never known the world to exist and function any other way. A couple times, adults they run into will refer to them as being from the lawless generation, which was a nice touch, added a little culture to this world. One of our protagonists is a boy named Maru, who's been an orphan for as long as he can remember. He's spent his whole life drifting from one group to another, following whoever was taking in unfortunate souls like himself until he was able to take care of himself. Maru's got an advantage on that front, though, an ability to reach inside man-eaters and crush their hearts, or maybe the corruption in their souls. As Maru doesn't really understand his ability, this isn't given an explanation either. In any case, Maru's on a mission. The last person who took him in was a woman named Mikura. Before she died, she entrusted him with a syringe full of some kind of medicine and told him to look for a place she called Heaven. There's someone he needs to find there and get the medicine to, and that's literally all he has to go on. He's hired our other main protagonist, Kiruko, as a bodyguard, and the two are traveling the ruins of Japan, following any lead they can get on this place called Heaven. Kiruko's character is a little more complicated. 5 years before the start of our story, in what basically passed for a city now in this post-apocalyptic world, there was a girl named Kiruko who made a name for herself in the kart racing circuit. She was something of a minor celebrity, but she raced for a pretty simple reason. Her winnings provided most of the funding for the orphanage where she and her younger brother Haruki lived. Haruki was a fairly ordinary little boy, a little headstrong, eager to grow up and get stronger and join his place amongst the men in the community who went out on patrols and kept the town safe from any man-eaters who wandered by. He was already in training, having found a mentor in a man named Robin. Robin wasn't the leader, but he was basically seen as the coolest guy in the colony, the one all the kids looked up to, aided along by the way he made an effort to spend time with the kids, tell them stories, keep their spirits up, that kind of thing. Robin was the epitome of everything Haruki wanted to be when he grew up. But then one day, while watching one of Kiruko's races, Haruki spotted a man-eater hidden near the end of the track. He goes to confront it alone, and is already nearly dead by the time Kiruko reaches them. She carries what's left of his body back to the orphanage and hands him over to the doctor there, who she seemed to idolize, similar to the way Haruki viewed Robin. We don't get to see exactly what she asked of him, but it's not hard to imagine that exchange would have gone down the path of her begging him to save her brother, no matter the cost. At least, that's my theory for how we ended up here. Haruki does wake up into what he assumes must be a nightmare at first, when he realizes his brain's been transplanted into his sister's body. Haruki never really trusted the doctor himself. There were rumors amongst the kids that Robin was investigating him in relation to the people who were going missing in town. They thought he might be experimenting on them with man-eaters. Haruki awakens to learn that both Robin and the doctor have disappeared without a trace. The orphanage where he lived has been shut down, unable to support itself without the money Kiruko was making from her races. And furthermore, the doctor's the only one who knows for sure what went down during the surgery. The nurses assume Kiruko just lost her mind after Haruki's death, and that's why she thinks she's her brother now. Though this series has some trippy twists and turns, I never doubted that this really is Haruki's mind inside Kiruko's body. We see enough of the fight to see that the man-eater leaves her cut up, but not injured enough that she should have needed any kind of surgery herself. Of all the mysteries in this show, this one's more a question of why the doctor did it than what he did. But all of this isn't actually the complicated part. The thing that tripped me up a bit when I sat down to write about this show. Haruki moves forward, crafting a new identity of sorts, going by the name Kiruko, who the series refers to with female pronouns, so that's what we're going to go with here. It's not news to me that anime is made according to another culture's norms. This is just one of those storylines that really brings that to the forefront of the conversation. Because I'm sure some of it has to do with how we only got this backstory as a response to Maru confessing that he's fallen in love with her. The start of a romance between them continues to build throughout the rest of the series, so it would have made it much simpler on the writers to present Kiruko as a girl. Though, in their defense, they don't shy away from examining how the reason they've built up such a connection and can relate to each other so easily is precisely because Kiruko's not exactly a girl. It's a bit of a gray area, made grayer by the knowledge that this character for sure would have been tackled very differently had Heavenly Delusion been created with a Western background and ideals in mind. But I also feel like Kiruko's gender is part of her character development, which helped to really smooth over any misgivings I might have had about how they were presenting her. As much as this is still Haruki's mind controlling this body, Kiruko tells Maru that she's mostly grown comfortable with being referred to as a woman, and doesn't mind if he keeps doing it. But the bigger thing is that they're definitely pushing the idea near the end that Kiruko's her own person. Obviously, she can never be completely separate from the two who created her, but I think it's a tricky storyline that's actually handled really well. And to finally get back to the bigger story here, Kiruko keeps an ear out for any information about Robin or the doctor, too, as the two continue their search for heaven. So there's a lot going on in this story, and I'm sad to say that Season 1 does end with most of the mysteries left unanswered, which actually kinda caught me off guard. I don't know why, but I'd had it in my head that this was an original work. And it's not. It's an adaptation of a manga, which is still ongoing. I can't say that wasn't a disappointment. It always hits me a little harder when I don't realize I'm signing up for an incomplete story. The perils of going in as blind as possible, I guess. All I'd really known about this one was that it had gotten a great reception. I usually take that to mean there's some kind of ending. But the first season of Heavenly Delusion is one that doesn't really arrive anywhere, despite establishing a goal for our heroes right at the beginning. Kiruko and Maru actually still haven't even found and met the kids yet by episode 13. But while it would feel disingenuous not to mention this lack of a conclusion, I do also want to say that I don't mean to use it as a reason to dissuade you from watching this series. Maybe it's because the series is still new enough that I'm entirely optimistic it will get a second season, but I didn't feel like its lack of a conclusion really affected my enjoyment of the show overall. Heavenly Delusion was one of those shows where, when it was good, it was so good, you guys. This series does some things incredibly well. I think it's the best example of a post-apocalyptic setting I've ever seen. There's such a texture to this world. It's a lawless era for sure, but there are also new societies that have popped up, all running by their own sets of rules. It's presented to the audience very naturally through Kiruko and Maru, who, as I said before, don't question it too much, because they've never known any other kind of world. Kiruko and Maru are really great characters. Individually, yes, but especially as a team. Sometimes Kiruko felt like an older mentor. You could kind of tell she wanted to be a Robin of sorts for him, but most of the time they just felt like equals. What struck me almost immediately was how they could seem so mature and weathered one second, and like such kids the next. They were a really fun team, and on that note, the dub for this show was fantastic. Those lighthearted moments were important, because if there was one other thing this series did really well, it was horror. The moment that immediately comes to mind is Haruki waking up in Kiriko's body, but just about every little adventure they went on included some reveal or scene that might haunt a person's nightmares. It really complemented the setting. Just because our characters are used to the world being messed up, doesn't mean it's not still messed up. But in the interest of giving you the full picture, I do also have to say that if there was one thing that did really disappoint me, it wasn't the lack of an ending, but how predictable it could be sometimes. The man-eaters, for example, are barely explored, but they do find the time to introduce the likely possibility that they were once humans who died of some kind of disease. And if that isn't the most cliché way possible to handle a monster story these days. This is one of those reviews where it's a little hard to make a firm recommendation one way or the other. There are some really great things here, and on the whole, I really enjoyed it, but it does have some pretty significant weaknesses too. It's topping the list of shows I hope get a second season now. And it's added yet another series to the list of manga I want to check out someday. To be honest, the lack of so many explanations throughout has also left me worried that there may have been a lot left out when it was adapted. But it's one of those series where you really have to weigh the pros and cons for yourself. Despite being left hanging, I think it was worth getting into. Something about these characters has really drawn me in, and I won't be able to let this one go without knowing how it ends. Thank you for watching.